So we'll
Okay.
sign that.
I'm gonna need your bill.
Good to go.
Welcome everybody again. Seems like we were here just yesterday. I know we all know each other, but for those that are watching may not know everybody who's at the table, so I think it's always good to go around and introduce ourselves. So I'll start. My name is Terry Harmon. I am counsel to the school district, here serving as negotiator. And to my left,
Julie Sessa, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources.
Sherry Richardson, Director of Professional Standards and Employee Relations.
Carter Morrison, Assistant Superintendent for Finance.
Jeff Raymond, Director of Talent and HR.
Lisa Estevez, Assistant Superintendent, Student Support Services.
Don Calderon, Director of Risk Management and Employee Benefits.
Daniel Moore, Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
Mark Howells, Coordinator, Martin County Schools.
Pat Holtz, MCEA.
Susan Rayo, MCEA.
Alec McIntyre, MCEA.
Gary Simmons, Chief Negotiator for MCEA, FEA.
Matt Thibault, President, MCEA.
Lonnie Barch, MCEA.
Kimberly Love, MCEA.
well, again, welcome everybody. I've made some notes about what I think some of the issues that we got on our plate today to address. And I'll see if you'd like to add anything to this to make sure I didn't miss it. I think the first thing we'd like to do is present a response to the proposals that you had passed across the table last week on Articles 13 and Articles 3. I had mentioned to you that we had anticipated opening up and making proposals as to Articles 2 and 11, and we did, so we'll pass some across when we get to that point. Obviously, I think at that point, you'll want to take some time to look at what we presented. And then we've got 2 MOUs on a couple of different topics that we'll pass across maybe later, more towards the closing of the session. We figured we would first address the issues that are, I guess you would call it old business from the last meeting. Does that sound okay for now? Okay. So I think the first we have.
Yes.
Okay, so we do have copies we'll pass out. Bear with us. And I think we'll start with Article 13, yes. Now that it's been passed out, obviously you'll want a chance to read it, but I'll just give you kind of an overview. I know with the Article 13 proposal that you had passed across the table included a proposed increase to the $6,500 that the board contributes to individual employees, and then an increase in the spouses provision from 13,000 to 18,000, and then one other provision as it relates to insurance increases. We had an opportunity to really dive into that, and we had some pretty meaningful discussions about some of the comments that you had made that supported why that language was being passed across the table. We had some pretty in-depth discussions about this, and I think where we are from the district's perspective is, yes, we acknowledge there have been increases of insurance. They are continuing to increase. And it is something that I think we would like to look at, insurance, the plans, to see if there is more of a long-term fix. Our concern with changing the CBA right now was it is a quick fix, but we wanted to be able to really dive in with what we have available now, gather some more data, and engage in some collaboration at the table to try to find out what might be some more long-term solutions to some of your concerns that you raised, and then just to see what other options are out there. But what we did not want to do was just kick the can down the road and say, hey, we'll look into this, which we will, but also to try to do something in the meantime. And so what we came up with was this proposed MOU that would provide for up to $500 supplement to certain members that are included within the bargaining unit. And we've tried to define which groups of those members would be eligible for this $500 supplement. Would be those members who are enrolled in, actively working during the 24-25 school year in either an HMO or a PPO, but not the high deductible health plan. Those members that are part of the high deductible health plan, the board is already contributing, I believe, $750 towards a health savings account. And so that's why we did not specifically include them within this group. The way that it's drafted now and what we tried to convey there with the monthly payments, just so you can understand the concept, was if you are an employee on July 1 and you are enrolled in an HMO on July 1 and you stay with the district entirety of your contract through the school year, you would receive the full $500. You would receive that monthly amount. But you may have members who are hired in January who are only in there for a 6-month period of time. Those would get the same amount as somebody hired at the beginning of the year. They just wouldn't be eligible to get up to $500 because it would be however many months they were employed. So that's why we kind of broke it out, so everybody's getting kind of the same benefit when they're enrolled in the plan, regardless of when they start their contract year. And then again, our hope would be that we can do a deeper dive into health insurance as a whole. So that would be our counter to Article 3. And then, I'm sorry, 13, I said Article 3. On Article 3, I don't even need to pass it. That was the provision that I believe you had passed across about arbitration and doing essentially, I think, a prevailing party arbitration piece. We are not in favor of that. I do not have a counter of that, but I have an explanation of why we are not interested in that. I sensed from maybe the comments that, Gary, that you had made that, you went through an arbitration recently and were prevailing, and there should be some skin in the game. I think you may have said that, but if I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but basically the idea there was more of a reluctance to go to arbitration if that's a potential outcome of it, right? A losing party has to pay the other side's attorney's fees. And we talked through that, and I think from our perspective, that is already built into the contract. I mean, it already, although it's not a prevailing party, the language right now already has both parties going into an arbitration with the understanding it's gonna cost both of us. So that should be an incentive in and of itself for us to try to fix things here instead of at an arbitration. There are some other nuances that I think doesn't make it plausible. For instance, what is a prevailing party? What if the arbitration is over a dozen issues and one party prevails on 8 of them and one party prevails on 4 of them? How are we going to go in there and determine who the prevailing party is? And we're gonna be spending more money to see who gets money. And we just thought that that would really just complicate the arbitration process. And really, we think it's already got that parachute in there that would try to keep us from having to go down that route. So that is our, I guess you would say, our counter, but it's really, we're just not interested in changing that language to a prevailing party fee.
Well, my response to that is that that's not an issue that I'm willing to sit here and delay getting our members compensated over. But I would just say on the record, if that's the position that the school board would like to take, then I would encourage them and invite them to move expeditiously with matters of grievances as the way they did with the salary proposals this year around. So if that's the position, then I expect that both parties are gonna be fiscally responsible and only take absolute necessary cases to arbitration, but I would just wanna expedite those processes, because it just takes an incredibly long time to resolve grievances in this district. And like, in my experience, it's just been the longest, to resolve a grievance. So that was the spirit, but it's not, it's not an issue worth, going over or delaying, moving forward in negotiations. So, understood and accepted.
And then we've got articles to present. We'll start with articles, go in order. Article 2. Make sure we have copies of that. Thank you. We'll pass those out. Yes, I said. Are theirs numbered as well?
Yes.
Makes it easier.
Thanks.
Yeah. Make sure you all get it. I'll give you a minute to look at it before I start talking this time. The changes should be lines, color coded them. Starting on line 111, there's a change on 128.
Yes, it's in our binders in session 8.
And that, so the explanation, because I think there's just two sections, starting on line 111 was to try to incorporate the language from the most recent MOU on the Western Zone to supplant the language that is currently in there. And I think that kind of speaks for itself. The one on line 128 and 129, I think probably requires a little bit more of an explanation behind it and the reasoning of why that's proposed. If you see right now, the current language that is stated in there says if we're not able at this table to reach an agreement by July 1st, that salary increases would be paid retroactively. And our concern with that is it doesn't really build in an incentive to move quickly for us at the table. I mean, I'm not saying that's our desire or your desire. I think your desire is move quickly through salary, get it paid out quick. I think that's our desire too. I think we both mutually recognized this last week and got that done. And there's been some times, I know I was involved last year where it was in March, April. So one of the reasons we put this in here was it's kind of a forced requirement for us to get this done because nobody wants to get to a point where it's February 2nd and what's in this happens. And so it was a way to maybe force a timeline that is more expedited than what is currently in here. The other thing too, although probably not an impact on MCEA, but just in transparency as well, is that the district is required to report salaries to the state by February 1. So when the numbers for the district are reported to the state, it's based on whatever the salaries are as of February 1. So if we haven't resolved, then we have to give the state data that is not consistent with what the salaries actually are. That's just a part of it, but the main drive behind this was a desire to really force a more expedited timeline on each other.
Well, I can understand and appreciate the need for the board, but I think that in order to find a way to expedite this process, we have to be honest with ourselves and what's causing the delays. So the real problem is that we can't make decisions in this room the way that we need to make decisions in this room. Usually, it's the district side that always has to go back to the school board to get their opinion or their response on that. And this is completely separate and different from the rest of the negotiations that I deal with in Indian River and Okeechobee. This is the only one in which an executive session is required after each session. So if they're proposing to to put a timeline all the way in February, how many executive sessions are they willing to have in a week? Because that's what the biggest problem is. The holdup is the fact that it has to be an executive session prior to any discussion. We have the ability to ask for a caucus, just like we did in the first session, and come out with a response and TA on it. You guys don't have that luxury. So why is the timeline being proposed to us when you guys need the overnight, let's bring it back the next session and give you a response? We don't have to go to our membership and give you a response. All of the decision-making bodies for MCEA is right here at the table. So I'm not comfortable with talking about moving a timeline, because that would insinuate that we're part of the delay. And just like I came here today, just as I came last bargaining session, with the intention to finish tonight. So if you guys don't have the intention or the ability to finish tonight, then I think that that's an internal conversation that you guys have to figure out how we can meet those February 1 deadlines, because I meet an October 31st deadline in my other two districts with respect to salaries, and I think that we can do the same thing here if we model what's working in those other counties, and that's the school board giving their parameters and letting you guys be your professional and talented selves and come up with an agreement and let them vote on it after we come up with the tentative agreement. It's like they ratify 2 times, Terry. So they ratify after every session to say what they're gonna agree with, what they can't agree with. Then our folks ratify it during the normal ratification process, and then they ratify it yet again in a school board meeting. So what they ratify in the school board meeting, they've already agreed to, read, and contributed to each line that we tentatively agreed to already. So they're tentatively agreeing to something that they had their hands in the entire time. So I respect the need, but what I would say is that we would come to every bargaining session with the spirit to finish on that day. So the timeline isn't required for us. I think that that's an internal situation that needs to be addressed on the school board side.
I respect your view of it, but what I think maybe you may not appreciate on that side is specifically when it comes to salary, when there are counter proposals made, there are times where you may make a counter proposal that for whatever reason may involve something that simply this group at the table can't decide because of the potential impact on the district as a whole. And that would be really, I think, short-sighted of us on our side of the table not to vet that through our CEO, and if necessary, to have an executive session to discuss that. So I think that's just a function sometimes is when it comes to the money and how money is doled out and how budgeting is done, it may just require more conversations on our side than it may on your side.
I can understand and appreciate that too, Terry, but what this proposal is asking is that our bargaining unit members suffer the financial sacrifice if you guys need all of these extra sessions, because we don't need it. We don't need it. I think that we've demonstrated and displayed in the last bargaining session that if a good deal is on the table, we have the ability to call a 20, 30-minute caucus, consider those conditions, and come back with a response. So I don't think that it's fair for our bargaining unit members to have to sacrifice getting retroactive pay over circumstances that's completely beyond not only their bargaining unit, bargaining team control, but it's out of their control as well. We can't make the school board give you guys the ability to make a decision here. If their rule is that you have to take it back, that's their rule to take it back. But I don't think that our bargaining unit members should suffer a financial loss if we get tied up in a proposal and don't come to an agreement. So what I would say with respect to that particular portion is that we have to handle that the same way that the board decided to handle ground rules. We don't need to memorialize it. Let's just come to the table with the idea and the focus to get finished before February. But I'm not comfortable with memorializing it, because if there's anything that happens that's beyond our control and it extends past February, then our bargaining unit members are going to take the financial loss, and the loss is only with them. No one else bears that loss but them, and they're not part of that process. So I think that that's completely unfair to make an agreement where their money is solely tied to how fast we finish. And just going over the parameters again, we're here to finish. Like, I'm hoping that we finish tonight.
Well, I will add this, though. I'm not sure every time, though, that when, in the past, and I don't want to dwell on the past, but it goes into why we proposed this. I'm not sure I would agree, though, that every time sessions have had to be extended. And I appreciate you've been at the table with this
The
group
whole
longer than
time,
I.
4 years, Terry,
But
4
in
years.
my, I've been since 22 intermittently. And I would just say, in my experience, though, I would not agree that every time sessions have had to be extended out over a period of time, that it was because the school board wanted to have a say in something.
Well, I would respectfully disagree with that
I
point,
assumed you
Terry.
would, but,
Yeah,
but
'cause
that,
we've never asked to come back, like, they don't have anybody, we don't have anybody to throw this stuff around with. Like, they call me Papa Smurf. So we go into these meetings, and it's our council that results in whether or not we agree to language or something like that. So it's not a requirement. I don't need to go to my numbers guy. I think that, working with Mr. Morrison over the past 4 years, we've been able to eliminate that part to speed up the process, right? So just like last week with the way that the Excel spreadsheets are created, it greatly reduced the time and eliminated the need for us to bring our finance guy in to crack the numbers, et cetera, et cetera. So that part is eliminated. Everything related to salary, because of the talent and the skill set that you got right here at the table, we're very easily able to respond to a counter without having to say, all right, guys, let's end the session and come back. So I don't anticipate in this session or any future sessions where we're gonna need to break and come back and give you a response. All we're gonna be asking for from this point forward is a couple minutes to caucus, and then when we come back with that caucus, if we need to create a counter proposal, maybe we need to come back. But it's just depending on how long you wanna wait, because we could create a proposal back there too and finish these sessions at 8, 9 o'clock. That's our commitment to get it done.
okay.
Terry, I don't wanna beat a dead horse, but my question is, why isn't taking care of their employees in a timely manner enough of an incentive for the board to get deals done in a reasonable amount of time?
I think it is. I think what motivates this is the desire for both parties at this table, through that language, to be bound to get this done. And I think that's where Gary says, I respectfully disagree.
Well, I would.
And you do too, but I
I
think.
will disagree with that, because we are bound, because we're not some outside entity that comes in and negotiates on behalf of 1,200 teachers in this district. We are the teachers of this district, and we're bound to our colleagues, to our coworkers, to our friends, and our families. And we are 150% committed to making sure that our friends and our colleagues in our classrooms every single day have the best quality of life possible. And we come to the table with that goal in mind every single time. Every single time.
But I just,
We don't need a February 1st date to remind us that's of who we're fighting for.
And it was just one other point, Alec,
Go ahead.
if you will, Alec is, this is his first year on the bargaining team, but he's been very involved in this process, over the past couple of years, but Alec had something he wanted to share.
Yeah, just had a thought, wanted to share, in the debate about whose fault it is, in regards to this, the February 1st, it doesn't matter. I think the point is that there can be no financial penalty for members of the bargaining unit when it's something out of their control.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we went to that one, but we didn't discuss, the previous.
the Western Zone.
Yeah, I wanna have a discussion about that real quick. So just going through this, this proposal would make, a flat 3,100, Western Zone supplement as outlined in our Appendix B2. The only issue with that is that if we would agree to this, then we would have, a certain percentage of our bargaining unit members that would take a financial deficit on this, because, you do have the 1375 that they were getting. So, with that 1375 and the 2,000 that they were getting before, that's 3375, and we're asked to agree to 3,100. So how am I going to explain to bargaining unit members that with the stroke of a blue pen, they lost $275?
I think what you would explain to them is that pen stroke happened in January of 2023.
I would disagree with you. You know I'm gonna disagree with that.
I know you are,
Yeah,
but I mean,
so
like,
I'm not even gonna go down that
It said,
route, man.
I mean, it says, the terms and conditions of this memorandum are meant to supersede, supplant, and replace all language contained in the CBA contained in Article 2.4.E. So I know we can dispute that, but I think our view is January of 2023, it was agreed upon that.
But that had a sunset date, Terry. Like, I didn't start doing this yesterday, Terry. Come on. We did an MOU. The MOU has a sunset date. So you can't apply the terms of that for after the sunset date has taken place. So, I mean, if that's what delays this process. That's exactly what delays this process. Come on, man. I'm not even gonna dwell and spend time on that one. That's an emphatic no with that.
Where does the MOU sunset though?
What do you mean?
In the language of the MOU.
So if the MOU didn't sunset, then what's the need for this?
I mean, we've already incorporated into, well, the need for this is we have an arbitration over this piece, over an argument over this issue. And so if you look already, I believe in Appendix B, that $3,100 is already in the CBA as the supplement. It's just this language referencing the $3,100 supplement is not in here. So I guess it kind of goes back to the pending arbitration that's been filed. You've got language in the CBA saying one thing and then an MOU amending it.
The MOU amending it took place after the grievance was filed on the Western Zone. So,
Okay.
so the reason why we continued is because when you did file the MOU, the same issue that I'm presenting right here on the microphone still existed. That 3,100 still left our grandfathered employees $275 short.
So if you'd like to make a counter proposal. to that
Nah,
language.
I would like to keep the language the way that it is. That's our counter.
Gotcha. Anything else before we move on to the
Nah,
next
I mean,
one?
and if that didn't go for, wasn't clear for the other one, for the February 1st, I just want to reflect for the record that we disagree with that and we have no appetite to change that language at the time. So if there's a continuance of $3,100 and our members are still getting $275 short, then we still have a problem. And I'm glad that I know that before we signed anything.
Okay. Next is Article 11. I just need a moment to grab something too. all got it in front of you, I can move on now, start. So on Article 11, start with line 44, which is personal leave. What our intent here was, if you see there, the current language that's been struck through, the first sentence speaks to the idea that personal leave requests shall not be approved for any day immediately preceding or following a paid holiday. We had some discussion about, I guess, there being some prior disagreement or issues related to what paid holiday means, whether that's a Sunday or is that just a paid holiday. And what we got to when we were trying to come up with a way to maybe clear that up and what that meant is we reverted back to the idea that, look, if a principal can manage the workforce and have coverage for classes and make sure that students are taken care of, there should be some discretion for the principal to be able to grant personal leave requests for days immediately preceding paid holidays. You know, if a paid holiday is a Monday and you want to take Friday off and your principal says, I can cover this, I won't have an issue doing this, then we would give the principal the discretion to be able to do that. So our approach to this, instead of getting in defining what paid holiday is or is not, we just wanted to go more to an approach of leave it up to the principal to run the school and deal with granting or denying leave requests and not making it restricted the way it was before. Or I think I put principal or designee just in case somebody else maybe is at the school site the one that might be doing that. And then all the way to lines 260 to 263 and 289 to 295, which are, it's for the camera just in case, Article 11.2, paragraphs F and I. They're both stricken through, give the explanation of why.
I don't think we gotta go through that.
Although I'm sure it's not a surprise.
Yeah, we don't have to go through that.
All I would point out too is that the CBA in Article G already contains language for leave without pay that's open to all members of the bargaining unit. And based on just the continued issues back and forth on those, that was our proposal on really I and a little bit of F.
Yeah.
I think that's it on our language proposals.
Well, with respect to I and F, I want to talk about I real quick. If any of my bargaining team members feel differently, feel free to chime in. But we don't have any interest in changing it. We have a responsibility as custodians of our collective bargaining agreement to make an assessment when language is placed in front of us. And that assessment is real simple. Does this strengthen our contract or does it weaken our contract? And if this is a concern of the school board, let me put on record so it's clear. We don't have any anticipation or interest in even utilizing this language for the very near future. Our current president is in the classroom, and we're trying the best that we can to manage everything as it historically was. We've had 2 years with our president on release time, and we don't anticipate this being an issue moving forward. I'm not interested in taking any language out, and the reason being is because I don't want to professionally be the first chief negotiator in the state to give away president release language. And that's just a bad look professionally on my side. If the board wants to take it out, then they're gonna have to figure out a way to take it out without us agreeing to take it out. There's not a plan in place to utilize this in the form of I or in the form of F in the near future. So if that's a concern of theirs and the spot that it puts the district in with being the pass-through and having the liabilities, et cetera, I'm saying on the record that that's not gonna be an issue, for the very near future, that I can see. So, I just would prefer that we keep our language, the same.
Gary, can I say something
Please.
about and Gary is correct. We don't have a plan, anytime soon, to exercise this language. But I will say this, our members, deserve, and our teachers, not just our union members, but all of our teachers, they do deserve to have somebody dedicated, full-time, fighting for them 100% of the time. They've made that abundantly clear to me over the past year when I've done my school site visits. And if they wanted, their president to be released, then to me, striking out this language, is a clear message from the board, to the teachers of this district that they disagree with that they don't deserve to have somebody fighting for them. And I think that's a real shame. Because again, I think it comes down to a misconception, of who we are sitting at this table. We are not some outside entity who wants to fight, and pick fights on things and make everybody's life miserable. We don't want that. Our sole purpose is just the opposite. We will fight, but our goal is to do what's best for our members, and we are committed to that 100% of the time. And if nothing else, at least the president's leave language memorializes the fact that should our members want to have somebody outside of the classroom fighting for them full-time, they deserve the right to have that.
And just in closing, I would rather have it in place and not use it than to eliminate it and then have a fight to get it back. Boards change all the time, right? Boards change, philosophies change, and I would rather have it in here, and if there's a need in the future to revisit the possibilities of exercising this language, we won't have to fight to get it back in the contract and then ask to exercise that right. So with all due respect, I just think that we would want to keep that language the same for not just President Theobald, but for future presidents that takes on this huge responsibility of leading this organization.
So I'll say, one piece to that though. There's nothing about striking this language that expresses the board's desire to prevent MCEA from having a president serve in a full-time capacity. You can do it. You're doing it right now. If this language was gone, MCEA can still have somebody in a full-time capacity doing that. And so, no, I don't think striking the language is a function of the board at all trying to prohibit MCEA from having somebody sit in that role. I think the issue, this language over the last two years has caused more grief at this table than a lot of other issues that we've had. And it's language that applies to one person. I think it might be the only thing in the entire collective bargaining agreement that gives special leave rights to a single person. And when you implement that leave as a school district, it's for an employee to not work for you, but to go work somewhere else. The employee can already do that. You are working on behalf of another organization when you take presidential leave. You are MCEA.
Yeah, well, I would disagree.
I'm almost done.
Yeah, I would
And I
disagree.
understand that working on behalf of teachers is working on behalf of the district. I understand that. But there's a reason it's called leave, and that means you're left out of your current position to go work in a different position. All of that can still happen. You can still have somebody lead that. I think from the board's perspective, though, is having to grant leave to a teacher, one single person, and then have to be the fiscal agent and be responsible for ensuring insurance coverage for that, and a lot of the other things that go along with it. It's better left out, particularly when it would not otherwise prohibit MCEA in any way from having someone in that role.
And I can understand and appreciate that perspective. But the reality is that this idea isn't mutually exclusive to Martin County. This practice, and I've said it on record numerous times, I've sat in this position all around the country negotiating contracts. Do you know how common a full-time release president is? Like, it's not a foreign concept. This isn't something that's mutually exclusive to Martin County. This is a practice. Yesterday, I was watching the news, and there was a rally at UAW, and the president is right there. Do you think that president is putting windshield wipers on cars during the day? He's dedicated 100% to doing the work of that organization. So in the way that he remains a part of the bargaining unit, because you can't be a president and not be in the bargaining unit, that would be a violation of the Constitution and bylaws of every organization. So in order to hold the position, you have to be a bargaining unit member. So I understand and appreciate it. When we had these discussions, I provided copies of at least 24 other districts in the state that is exercising the same practice. So I understand that they have a problem with it. Our response to that is, it shouldn't be a problem anymore because we don't have any intention on exercising that language in our contract in the near future. I hope that answer is good enough to satisfy the school board, but asking us to take language out to weaken our contract is a non-starter. We can only come to tentative agreement if both sides can see the mutual benefit of agreeing to it. This only benefits one side, so we're not going to be able to give you a tentative agreement if that agreement isn't beneficially mutual. It's only mutual to the school board. So I have a responsibility to say that on record that suggestion weakens our contract, and I can't, in the right professional mindset, to agree to it. I will have to respectfully ask to leave it as is and give the school board an opportunity to understand that it's not a risk. They don't have to worry about those concerns. Where we have our president in the classroom, and we're figuring out how to make it happen to benefit our bargaining unit members moving forward like we have historically.
And Terry, I think the fact that you think that this only applies to one person shows that maybe you didn't quite hear what it was that I was saying before. But that's okay. I think that if the concern is that this only applies to one individual in one individual role, as Gary said, this is common practice in many other counties. It's also common practice in a lot of those counties to allow for other executive board members to be on leave as well. So this doesn't just have to apply to one person in one position.
I think that was all we had on that article, but I think we'd like to pass these now. I didn't know how much time we'd have, but we do have, I think I'd mentioned there were a couple MOUs I wanted to pass along as well. This one we did. The first one, let's go with this one first, the one that's already signed. Yeah, and I'm fine. Sure. And I'll let Carter take
So,
the mic.
as everyone is aware, or maybe aware, I should probably say, that we received our allocations of ESSER and ARP, American Rescue Plan monies. And those funds expire in September of this year, about a month and a half away. Unfortunately, with the best planning that we did over the summer, we have an existing MOU that was signed, looks like October of 2022, which allowed us to pay our members $50 an hour for summer school instruction. The way we read the MOU, we believe that that MOU will allow us to continue. My legal counsel has looked at the language and interpreted that. What we would like to do for the school year through September 30 is to continue that after-school instruction. I'll kind of turn this over to Dan a little bit to talk about. I know they're focusing on the middle schools and high school credit recovery pieces, that they would like to pay continue to pay your members the $50 an hour until those funds are pretty much exhausted.
Okay.
Another MOU, did you pass that one around? So another MOU that we have, which would be, yeah, that's the existing one, correct.
Right.
So we have another one, did you pass around the extended day one?
We're doing it with his.
Okay.
And I think with that is really, it's not a signature, but is a more of a question, is your understanding
Standing
of that the
that
same as ours?
We could continue on with the same.
Yeah.
So in paragraph 2, where it says, this MOU applies only to summer school and tutoring positions that are fully 100% funded through ESSER, et cetera. We believe that that language where it says and tutoring positions
Right.
allows us to
Yeah.
continue with that.
I would share that same interpretation.
Okay. So the next MOU, I believe that is on its way around to you. So same concept, except that we, for those who may have been following the school board meetings, the school board is desirous to have an instructional component in the extended day after-school program. So again, what we're trying to do is utilize these funds that are left over from the COVID dollars that expire in September. However, this one has a little bit of a difference. So the compensation, which is on lines 17 through 19, would be for $50 an hour, gross before taxes, for those who participate in the program. However, what we wanted to provide those teachers is a waiver for the tuition and the materials as an added incentive. Now, the funds that we have, we know expire, that's the period of availability, that's the federal grant. It expires on September 30. So what we've done is that we did the math and say, okay, it looks like we're able to provide that incentive of the waiver through September 27th. Excluding the week of this week, I believe that the thought process behind that, I believe there was an announcement made already that this week would be waived anyway. The items that we're waiving is the registration, $8 per child enrolled, the materials fee of $25 per child enrolled, and the tuition piece that gets you up to $55 per week per child enrolled. So in plain English, what that means is if you're a teacher and you're teaching in the program, and you have your child who goes to extended day, then all these items that we listed here would be waived. In section 32 through 35, what we've done is said, okay, we're gonna give first priority to those teachers who are teaching in the program. Well, we may have money left. So if we have money left, we're going to then go into your MBUs who do not work in the program to also give them an opportunity to participate in the waiver of up to the maximum of the $55 per week per child enrolled. So outside of this agreement, again, this only covers the time period that the COVID dollars are alive. But I will say on record that we are working towards a situation where hopefully we can extend that for the remainder of the year. But this, I think, is a good start to get us along that road. So that we ask for your consideration of that MOU in order for us to utilize the COVID funds, extend the current one that we have, and then also identify the ones for extended day. A question that you have not asked me, but I'll answer anyway, is that we are working with our AFSCME leadership also to provide after-school busing, so that their members can also receive some money in their pockets as well. So we'll be negotiating that, and we've actually reached out to them and started having some conversations about that.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My computer's
So
locked.
we'll definitely, take this proposal into, consideration when we go into our caucus. But again, the same responsibility, is considered with respect to this. We go in there and we decide whether or not this is beneficial and strengthens our contract, or it's a detriment. And I think that this one is a little bit obvious. But we'll take the due diligence to go through it, make sure all of our team's questions are answered, and we should be able to give you a response to this,
Thank you.
this evening.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Before, I know we have a proposal to make, but I would like to ask one clarifying question for, consideration when we do go into our caucus to speak about the district's proposal on, counter proposal with insurance.
Talking about the MOU.
Yes, please. So my question is, and I'm not going to pretend to be a subject matter expert on anything insurance related. I just think that that's the beautiful part about collaboration, is that you don't have to force yourself to be the smartest man in the room when the collection of thoughts in the room makes the entire room intelligent. So the question that I have, or the clarification that I would like to dive into is, the board received our insurance proposal, and we were reaching for the skies to try to fix the problem with respect to the need for subsidies to offset some of these increasing costs. My very simple question, and Don, I know that you're the man when it comes to this stuff, so this question may be directed to you. The supplement amounts that are presented in this proposal, does that solve the problem so that we will no longer need subsidies moving forward to offset the increases?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball, so, what we can tell you is that, industry standard across the nation is medical costs increase 10% per year. So obviously, it's a national problem. I mean, what we're experiencing here is no different than if we were anywhere else, private sector or public sector. Like Terry said, the $500, I think the way, I can't speak for the board, but I think their rationale is a couple of things. One, if you combine the $500 with the $6,500 that the board is currently providing towards medical insurance, it's $7,000 total for this year. Then also, if you recall, in the spring, the board used some COVID and ESSER monies left over. Mr. Carter Morrison can give me the exact amount, but it was about $800.
$1 million.
Right, but per employee.
Oh, $820.
Yeah, it was $820. So every single employee received a one-time stipend of $820. And if you go back to the March 19th board meeting where the board renewed the insurance for the district, that money, the purpose of it and the intent was to go towards the increase in medical insurance for this year. So I think the board is exhausting every single thing that they can do for right now for the 24-25 year that we're in. If you take a look at the $500 plus the $820, that's $1,300 the board is contributing on top of the $6,500 for this year. I get it, insurance is expensive.
Right, so I understand the 6,500 and adding that 5 would increase it to 7, but I think the issue that we identified was a little bit further down in the original language where it's multiplied. The 6,500 times 2 gave us 13,000,
Right.
and that was the shortfall where we wanted to increase it. So because 13,000 wasn't enough. So with the 13,000 and then this MOU, how does this MOU affect that group for the 13,000 piece? Because I think the folks that were at the 6,500, that wasn't the primary that wasn't the major issue. The major issue was those that fell in that second group. I think it was, what was the group, the specific group?
Those folks that were enrolled prior to
Yeah.
7/1/2020.
Exactly. So this supplement would also, would go towards those
So it counts-
employees
it counts.
prior, the employees that are on the Employee Plus Family prior to 7/1/2020, they would receive this as well.
You're right.
HMO and the
Just-
Yeah, the
just
HMO and
the
PPO.
PPO.
And just for clarification purposes, I know Mr. Harmon described this earlier, but the reason why the high deductible health plan is included is that they're getting an additional $750 towards the health savings account, whereas those enrolled in the HMO and PPO are not. So,
Wasn't additional for the high deductible, the $750 to get people to switch over to that plan? Wasn't that the incentive for the board doing it? That was the discussion that was
Right,
had.
well-
If they could offer some money, more people would switch over. and those
Correct.
people on high deductible plans are also paying a lot of money per visit per doctor, out of pocket.
right, so that's the definition of a high deductible plan,
I
right? So you gotta reach the, right. So, I think what the board has done additionally as well is that they are very committed in offering a free employee-only benefit package to our employees. So the board is contributing actually above and beyond the $6,500 to offer that high deductible health plan, at zero cost. So, I mean, you know, something has to be done long-term here. I think we all know that. But, you know, we've had an increase in enrollment in that high deductible health plan. I mean, when we're out there talking to our teachers, especially during NEO last week, I mean, the fact that we're able to offer a no-cost benefit package, including medical insurance, that is something that none of our neighboring districts can offer, or even come close to, whether you're in St. Lucie or Palm Beach County. So, and we do a lot of education to our employees to make sure they're in the right plan, not just because it's free, but it's gonna work for them. So, to answer your question, yes, employees on that Employee Plus Family prior to 7/1/20 would have access to this as well. And I think, Matt, what you had talked about, you know, the board each year for the last 4 years has put aside hundreds of thousands of dollars for that Employee Plus Family prior to 7/1/20. I think the amount for this year is $323,000. So, you know, they're contributing above and beyond the $6,500 each year. So this is just another way that they're doing that, but.
No,
Yeah.
and yeah, we acknowledge that, and, well, it was my, let me rephrase, it was my intention to acknowledge that in my remarks last week, if I didn't make it clear that we appreciate that contribution for sure. And as Gary pointed out, our intention of increasing that second amount, you know, higher than that was to eliminate the need for them to keep having to go back and do that again and
Right.
again and again. It may be premature, but Don, are you thinking that the insurance committee is the vehicle or the place where we can start to have discussions on what a collaboration between the district and the employees, you know, side kind of looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've always done that, whether it's Julie leading it or myself the last 2 years. I mean, I think it does lend itself, I mean, that's the point of the committee. And, you know, the point of the insurance committee is not to use as a bargaining session to talk about, you know, well, what does it look like if the board contributes 7,000 or 7,500? I mean, you know, we work within the confines of what we're able to do. We are an advisory committee. I do think there's some value in that. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, whether it's a board workshop or, you know, whatever, those type of discussions that are greater than what we can accomplish there need to occur. And we're welcome to be a part of it, as well as you and AFSCME as well.
Absolutely.
Don, thank you, I appreciate it. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but working with you for about 2 years, I know that you're highly capable to answer these questions. Thank you so much.
He didn't even break a sweat.
Not a sweat. Thanks so much. So I think we'll move forward with the supplement proposal. We can pass that around and then have a conversation, and then we can proceed to go into our caucuses.
Okay.
gonna apologize in advance.
No.
The copy guy forgot to hit the color copy button on ours, so. And I say color copy guy 'cause it was me. I'm the problem.
Gary,
Make sure you date it.
we're moving forward with the extended day MOU to bring over. Mr.
Well, we'll discuss it in caucus.
Oh, okay.
We should have a response for you before we leave here tonight.
And so what did, I wanted to clarify what you just said, was which supplement did you want us to go ahead and pass around for signature?
Oh, I was asking them to pass around the,
Okay, okay.
yeah.
I thought,
yeah,
I was like, did I
our
have it here,
proposal.
or do I need to clarify?
Nah,
Of course, there's how many pages is this, Gary?
It's a lot of cells. So, in a similar light to the insurance discussion, our supplements here in the district, haven't been updated in more than a decade either. And, you know, there are some things like the insurance piece that aren't unique just to Martin County. We know that costs are going up all over the place. And the reality of the situation is that we have teachers working 2, 3, 4 jobs, you know, just to make ends meet. You know, and I think to illustrate that point, I think it was Carter's presentation during one of the school board meetings, talking about how teachers can earn additional income by doing additional jobs in the district. You know, so in that light, our proposal is to increase the amounts of the supplements for both instructional and for athletics. I wouldn't say all, most supplements, for instructional and athletics, by 25%. To give you guys a little bit of context, and again, I know that amount seems high, but when these amounts were fixed, they were fixed when teacher salaries were $37,000. We came to an agreement last time, one session, to raise starting teacher salaries to 51, 30, 34. That's a 27% increase from 37,000. So we're asking for our supplements to be adjusted accordingly. That was the thought process behind those numbers. I did want to point out a couple of things. Maybe it's a little bit of wishful thinking on our part, but the supplements in the middle column that are struck through, that included a range. We eliminated the range and moved to one flat amount for that. That was based on the higher amount on the range.
Of course.
Don't ask, don't get, right? I mean, come on. So that's where that stood. I think if you guys look on page 2, the STAR and the critical shortage supplement, my understanding, based on our conversations last year, that those amounts are not set by the school board, that the critical shortage piece is a component that is dictated by the state.
No.
Oh, I'm pretty sure
Only the
that's what you
school.
guys told us last
No,
year.
the school is dictated by the state. Only Indiantown Middle School is a critical shortage school, and that is provided even again this year in the agenda item when the board agreed to do a critical shortage for IMS. Again, this year, we produced the FLDOE documents attached to that board agenda item.
Okay.
So that is the school, and then, in the critical shortage inside the contract, it is strictly at the board's discretion, what the amount is and, when they determine it, but at this point in time, the board has gone with the FLDOE's designation of IMS only, and they recrafted that language based on comments and asks from your instructional members. They changed it this year for 24-25. Okay?
I appreciate that. That seems different than what we talked about when we were doing the SLP discussion last year, but that's okay.
So Matt,
No, I-
talking about the SLPs, I just noticed that too. Not sure the ink is even dry on
The
the
5,000?
agreement yet. It's your, what was your thought process on going to 6250?
Well, again, you know, we're appreciative of the fact that the board was willing to grant this supplement. But we did the math last year in preparation for that, and, you know, 5,000, while significantly greater than what it was, still doesn't make it competitive with some of our surrounding counties. So the idea was, you know, to increase it, to make it just a little bit more competitive and a little bit closer to what some of those other folks are getting. Because I know some of our other counties, they're getting $10,000, maybe $15,000 or more.
Also, have you guys put a cost to your proposal?
We did not, but it wasn't for lack of trying. We intended to do this as part of last year's negotiations. And we submitted the public records request,
That's right.
the appropriate public records request, specifically asking for that. And those amounts were not included in that public records request, in the information that we received.
Okay.
So again, it wasn't for lack of trying.
Okay.
But yeah, we definitely thought about that for sure. And the other point that I wanted to make, with the exception of maybe the strike through at the top of where it says B2, negotiated instructional supplements, and then the strike through for the description of B3, athletic supplements. We're not altering, this format is reflective of what's in the contract, but we did not include the descriptions of the supplements that are actually in the contract. So we're not asking to change any of the other language that's in there. I would have included that page for page, but formatting proved to be a little bit challenging for somebody like me who's not super tech savvy. But to show you what I mean, I think it's page 71 and 72 in the contract.
Right.
Well,
Oh, so all the other language remains, it's
So,
just the
correct,
the
we're
amount.
not, we're not adjusting it,
Right,
we're
just the
just,
chart.
we just made adjustments to the chart, correct?
Okay.
Can I ask for clarification?
Mhm.
I'm not certain what the Director of Student Affairs is, and if there's anybody currently that's in that position as a supplement, holding that. Does anybody on the other side of the table know?
I'm not aware, you know, I'm sure, I know when the superintendent, chose to make payments to the folks, doing the virtual schools, he took those supplements from the computer resource section, because those supplements were being unused. So that may be a situation like that. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
That it?
That's the extent of our supplement proposal, yes.
You wanna caucus come back? How long would you like?
Let's start with 30 minutes. If it's longer than 30, then I'll text you. I'll let you know.
6:13?
I'm gonna, it's Friday, I'm gonna waive that rule today.
You're
man.
standing between me and happy hour right now.
6:16.
6:15.
My OCD doesn't work on Fridays.
Ready?
Yep.
Yep, we're back on.
All right, so, we're back on the record. So I appreciate the opportunity to caucus. Truly does give us an opportunity to do some of this work. So I have a couple of responses. I want to start with the American Rescue Plan funded incentive for supplemental tutoring and extended day program, MOU. We're inclined to tentatively agree to this proposal. However, there are a couple of clarifying questions with respect to the program, solely in the spirit of being able to correctly articulate this to members of the bargaining unit who may have questions. So I'm going to open it up to our bargaining team members who have any questions and concerns with the way that this program will be implemented.
Sue, do you want to go first?
Okay, so, the last line, we know the funds expire on September 30th, right? And then it's or if and when they are depleted prior to this date. Here's my question, someone being hired for this program, they need to know, like, from start to finish, how much they're gonna make, because it's not found money, typically, it's needed money. So like, hey, I took on the tutoring, and now I can afford to buy that. So, will we be able to, like, ensure that, hey, you're taking this on and you're gonna get paid $50 an hour for the next 4 weeks? Or is it gonna be a sudden, oh, the money ran out?
If you work, you get paid, that's obviously
Okay,
the
so
law.
the money's not gonna run out suddenly and it's
No, we're
dead
done.
stuff,
No,
we're gonna know.
we've done the math and we think we're good through September 27th.
Okay,
So once you're hired on and you're working, you will get paid.
you're getting paid, okay.
And that's clearly articulated to the
Right.
folks that hired,
Yeah.
that they're getting hired at least through September 27th.
Okay.
Okay. And then, another question that came from the team was, do we know what the selection criteria looks like for folks who participate, or is that?
That's a Troy question, to be honest with you, not quite sure.
I
That's the-
can share, it'll
Oh,
be.
Dan's here.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and so obviously certified teachers, and so we're taking kind of a three-pronged approach, and so part of it's gonna be credit recovery for students that are credit deficient, part of it will be test prep, ACT, CLT boot camp, and then the other part's gonna be front loading and tutoring for our students that are behind or deficient but are not credit behind, so that those kids can have a better start to the year. And so obviously the focus initially is going to be, certification in English language arts, math, to focus on those test prep pieces and those credit recovery pieces, but they don't have to be certified in the area to produce it. And so really, we're looking at what teachers we have available. We're hoping that, we have enough to fill the spots that we have.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
And then I was just gonna echo, there would have to be an internal posting, and principals would have to interview for the position. And to Susan's question, the principal would get a set budget amount for
Okay.
tutoring. So when I was the principal, I would know I could offer you up to 3 hours per week, times 4 weeks, so.
Okay.
um,
It just looked like there could be
Correct.
change,
So it's
because
great
I wouldn't cost
clarifier.
as much
You
money,
answered it
because
better
I don't
than I
have
did.
kids in extended day. But
Yeah.
somebody else is a more expensive hire,
Understood.
so that
Yep,
changes
so they would
the
budget
costs along
accordingly.
the way, yeah.
I have a
If
new
I
question
remember
now.
correctly, sorry, Pat.
No,
If
go
I
ahead.
remember correctly, I believe it was 10 per site in the regular school year and 4 per site, I believe, for the extended day, something like that.
So my question, just based on what you say, because we're talking extended day, but it sounds like credit recovery and making up classes is more middle school and high school.
Right.
So does that mean the middle school and high school positions would allow those teachers to because they don't have extended day there, right?
No.
That's just elementary school, so that would allow those teachers taking those positions to put their students, if they had elementary age students, into extended day.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
So if a middle school or a high school, I don't know where extended day falls, we're thinking the extended day program. So
Yes.
so the extended day program is only for elementary school students. So if the tutoring is going on in a middle or a high school,
Are they eligible?
where does the extended day come in?
That's a good question. I don't have the answer to that.
Yeah.
And
Let me let me attempt to make a poor answer. So if you are teaching in the extended day program, then you're eligible for the waiver. Once you get your you're the first priority. So after the first priority is done, if you are a member of the bargaining unit and you have a child in extended day, but yeah, you're tutoring over here in middle
their
school.
child's
That's what that
over
layer
here.
Your
Okay.
waiver is that line 34.
Okay,
Okay,
You
so,
follow me now?
yeah, I did, but that's because we were thinking more of like on the elementary level
See,
of
the-
extended day and teachers tutoring
The
extended
idea
day
is,
kids.
at the end of the day, that all MBUs would have access to the waiver.
okay,
See what I'm saying? But we want to make sure that those who are teaching in the program, because it doesn't make sense for me to be teaching in the program and I don't have access to the waiver, so we're
Right,
giving you
right.
first preference. Then the money that's left, then your situation, if I'm tutoring at middle school, but I got my child in extended day, then you are covered under line 34.
Got
it.
You follow what I'm saying?
okay.
I won't speak to the money or financial aspect of it, but I will clarify that there are two initiatives going on, from my understanding, which is there will be tutoring going on in extended day programs and tutoring going on at the secondary level for the credit recovery and all those other pieces, because we, as a district, are looking to put a focus on some academic and instructional components in the extended day program for the kids who attend. So it's tutoring throughout.
Yeah, Understood.
Make sense?
Okay.
Okay.
I just, sounds like there might be a lot of moving parts to this, and I think from our side, we would just ask that whatever's presented to the members, you know, or to teachers, be clearly articulated, because it does seem like there's some fluidity there that folks are gonna be concerned about.
Yeah, I think principals only learned about it maybe yesterday, so I would expect a communication next week from each site that has the budget and the process.
Thank you, appreciate
Thank you.
appreciate that, yeah.
You guys are good to sign off on it? All right,
Yeah.
so we can do it, we can, sign a tentative agreement on that.
This is for this.
Yeah, that's the right one.
This is the right one? Yeah. Can you have Pat, just Pat?
We'll just wait till we get
Oh.
Copies when you get them.
Thank you. I'll sign it after you go. All right, so moving on, the next thing, we wanna discuss is Article 11, the leave provisions. Just on the surface, MCEA doesn't have an appetite for the recommended changes in Article 11. I wanna start with the personal leave proposal. So the problem that we have, and again, I just wanna keep reiterating this, so that, our responsibility as the sole and exclusive bargaining agent for bargaining unit members and, well, members of the bargaining unit. Thank you, Carter, for that, realizing that other way acronym spells out bums.
We don't use that anymore.
So we don't use that term as members of the bargaining unit. The issue that we have is that we have to make a determination on whether the recommended change benefits our bargaining unit members or it makes their situation a little bit more complicated than the original language had it. So with respect to personal leave, the concerns that we have with respect to the personal leave is that the approval or denial of requests for personal leave shall be based on the requirement of efficient operations of the district school system. So this creates a hurdle or a barrier for getting your excuse me, personal days approved where it didn't exist prior to. And then the second part of it says, as well as considerations of what is fair to the employee. So the employee is not involved in the decision-making of what is considered fair. That's solely determined by the person who is granting the personal leave request. That premise weakens the language that is initially in place because the original language only has a few parameters. And that's that you can't take a day off immediately preceding or following a paid holiday. So we lose that language, and then we gain language that has two additional hurdles or parameters in it. And then for that reason, we would make a determination that this proposal would make our personal leave language less beneficial for the bargaining unit members and more beneficial for principals. We need to work diligently to make sure that our members of the bargaining unit can take the opportunity to exercise the benefit and the right of personal leave that's afforded to them without it disrupting the operation of the district. And the shortage of substitutes and the amount of people that we can recruit into positions shouldn't have the ability on a person to take personal leave to go see their child graduate from college or from a trade school, or to go to a niece's wedding or what have you. So I just think that agreeing to this language makes that right a little bit more complicated and 100% solely based on whether or not that school site administrator would grant them the right to do so. And it's going to be based on efficient operations of the district and what's fair to the employee, where one person is making that determination of what's fair. So it's with that understanding that we would respectfully say that we believe the original language is more beneficial to our bargaining unit members versus changing to the suggested language that was proposed by the school board.
Gary, I'm sorry to interrupt, and I just thought of something too. You know, the initial question, or when it was initially proposed, you had said that there was a continuing question of whether or not you can take a day off before or after. I think that's largely been addressed because the district provided, and we passed it out to all of our faculty reps for our faculty rep meeting. There's a district sheet that has the paid holiday on it, and then on the left-hand side is the preceding date, and on the right-hand side is the following date, and it very clearly says which days you can and can't take off. And I think that answers that point, you know, as well, so.
So moving along through the article, I think that in the initial presentation of Article 11, we had a fairly large amount of discussion on why we object to changes to F and I, and I don't think that it's being a good custodian of our time to rehash that yet again. I think that we made that a little bit clear in the first, when it was presented. So in summary, the MCEA doesn't have an appetite for the recommended changes solely because those recommended changes makes our contract a little bit weaker. And as custodians of our contract and the obligation to make sure that we're not giving benefits away, it would be very, very difficult to agree to those changes in Article 11. Moving on to Article 2. Article 2, I think we have some areas to work. So in the presence of time, I know that we don't have a bargaining session scheduled for next week. Our next bargaining session is scheduled for 8/22.
Yep.
We have one for next week?
15.
Okay.
8:15.
I don't,
Okay.
we have one for the 15th? I don't have an invite for that. Yeah, I don't have an invite for that one.
When we get through bargaining, we'll go on record and talk about schedule, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's
Okay.
perfect.
We should have one for the 13th, 22nd, and 29th.
Yeah, I think I was skipped on that.
Skip September 5th and then go to September 12th.
We'll check it. I think I got,
29th, right? that was a conflict.
We'll,
Yeah,
we
we'll
can
figure it out.
circle back on scheduling and we'll
All
figure
right,
it
so,
out together.
So we'll bring that back on next bargaining session, a response to the Article 2, the Article 2 proposals. We'll bring a response to that in the next session. And the truth holds for the memorandum of understanding with respect to the medical insurance supplement. We just want to take a little bit more time to crunch those numbers. So we'll be prepared to bring Article 2 and a memorandum of understanding for the medical insurance supplement on bargaining session, number 9.
I think that just leaves us with a supplement.
I think so.
And I think we're similar to the MOU that you just stated for the medical insurance, just because of, it's a pretty substantial proposal.
Yeah.
We do need some time to go through that.
And that,
That
by
makes sense.
all means, that's completely understandable. We know that that's a lot to answer to in one session, so that's completely understandable.
And, the other point too is that, I think we're open to a discussion and a dialogue on that moving forward. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing.
Dialogue on the
Supplements.
supplements.
Nothing else on our end to present, I guess, at this point.
All right.
So I think unless you do, we could close and shut down and then maybe circle around and chat.
Right.
Schedules for
Okay.
anybody who
I don't
doesn't
know.
want to hang out, doesn't have to.
I don't know why I didn't get that one. The 14th one. Yeah, 15th, I'm sorry.
It was sent the other day.
14, 13, 12.